We just witnessed the latest occupied autonomous zone here in Washington, the Fife Occupied Protest, or FOP as I've been calling it. And I don't think these things are going away. It seems like this is only the start, it's only the beginning, and we're only going to be seeing more of these crazy autonomous occupied protests all over the state and maybe even the country.
Well, I don't want FOP, goddammit!
Hey, what's going on, Gab TV? What you're looking at is the Tacoma News Tribune, the News Tribune here in Tacoma, Washington. They are keeping me hostage. Homeless Tacoma advocacy group Occupy Fife Motel. A homeless advocacy group is occupying a Fife motel without pay, and the city police are looking to cooperate with them to find shelter. This group of Antifa communists took over a motel here in Washington state and they put out a list of demands and demanded that the government pick up the tab. Here is the article from Jason Rantz. What happened was this group took over the motel since Christmas Eve, and finally the police stepped in yesterday and took them out and actually cleared out the motel. Rantz, police clear out radicals, occupying motel, chief announces zero tolerance policy. And you can see tweets from Tacoma Housing Now where they say, the capitalists brought Nazis. And that's a clear symbol. You can see anytime somebody says that on Twitter, especially this kind of group, you know that they are Antifa communists. They call everybody Nazis. Anybody they disagree with, they label them as Nazis, and they say more fash are coming. That's short for fascists. If you put up a Trump sticker in Seattle, they call it fash agitprop. The Antifa communists call it fash agitprop, fascist agitator propaganda for a simple Trump sticker in Seattle on a light pole. It's pretty ridiculous. Here the police chief speaks and says, Police Chief Pete Fisher is speaking now to explain why they are acting today to remove the radicals. He confirms he was working with the radicals, but implies the business owner, who he does call a victim, might have made matters worse when he complained about the situation to the press. So the business owner of the motel went on and gave an interview and said he had repeatedly asked the police to step in and clear these people out because he was losing business. People were canceling reservations or not showing up because they'd seen the media coverage of this Antifa group that had occupied his motel. And so the cops are kind of trying to play both sides and say, yeah, we were working with these Antifa communists to try and find shelter for the homeless people that they were using for their cause. But at the same time, the owner, who is the victim, probably made it a little worse by speaking out. So he probably should have just kept his mouth shut. Give me a break. The original story, here it is. Radical activists with Tacoma Housing Now are holding a Travelodge motel hostage in Fife while activists are assembling their version of an army to defend the takeover. It's an escalating and dangerous situation. Law enforcement and local politicians are not doing much to stop it. Of course, COVID is also now spreading within the motel, as one of the organizers and one homeless occupier apparently tested positive for the virus. This should be called out for what it is, the intersection of deranged activism and domestic terrorism. And Jason Rantz is 100% correct here. These are Antifa communist terrorists here, and they're basically fishing for communism. They're doing their best to bring about a communist revolution, and they're throwing everything. They're throwing everything at the wall and hoping that something sticks here. Tacoma Housing Now holds a motel hostage. The fringe progressives behind THN paid for 16 rooms for one night on Christmas Eve at the Fife Travelodge. They housed approximately 40 homeless people, but they refused to leave and they're not paying. They've since taken more motel rooms, and Cairo 7 reports the group's intent is to force the county or city to turn the motel into housing for the homeless. So wouldn't that just be exactly like a communist revolution where the government comes in, takes control of a small business, and then turns it into housing for the homeless? I mean, give me a break here. We paid for the first night, and now we're demanding that the city and the county pay for the other nights that we've been here. THN spokesperson and local socialist leader Rebecca Parson told King 5 she belongs in jail along with the other occupiers. Parson bizarrely claims that she's bringing business to the motel because she's demanding the government officials pay for their theft. This is a remarkably insane and unstable position to hold. It's also unclear how many homeless people Parson is allowing to crash at her place for the night. It's funny that Jason Rantz points that out. I'd like to know how many homeless people she's letting crash at her own personal residence. I highly doubt any is the number. 0. And Army forms. THN has called on its army of supporters, think vegan Avengers, but in homemade defense gear, lame nicknames, and superpowers that mostly involve playing victim on Twitter, to show up en masse and help keep them safe from law enforcement. On Twitter, they ask for activists to show up for eviction defense. We need at least 70 people to prevent eviction. Antifa activists with It's Going Down, which promotes anarchist, anti-fascist, autonomous, anti-capitalist, and anti-colonial movements, promise they have 50 to 70 people ready to defend if needed. This is a hardcore group of true believers. They are so anti-capitalist, for example, they have their own Instagram and Twitter accounts. They report that housing activists from Tacoma Housing Now, Seattle, the Yellow House, and Olympia have coalesced into a broad Puget Sound coalition that will support housing actions in each other's cities. According to reports, about 60 protesters have rallied outside the motel as backup. They are keeping me hostage. Meanwhile, the activists are terrorizing a minority business manager. How woke of them. I'm just devastated, motel manager Sean told the Tacoma News Tribune. Because of the protests, I have nothing else. I was barely getting through this pandemic, and now this. This Christmas, the Grinch came. THN activists justify their hostage takeover by pointing to the Paycheck Protection Program loan that went to the hotel, which was used to keep his employees paid. They are keeping me hostage. No one is out to help me, manager told the Tribune. It's complete lawlessness in the city of Fife, but the activists, they're just fighting a just cause, while not actually housing homeless people where they live, and choosing instead to steal from others. Like you said earlier, none of these Antifa activists are housing the homeless people in their personal residences. Instead, they steal rooms from this motel owner and demand that you and I pay for them with our tax dollars via the government. They want the government to step in and use our tax money to pay for the bills on their crazy crusade. Fife leadership are missing in action. This guy complained to the police, and the police say that he possibly made it worse for himself by speaking out to the press after the police did nothing for 6 or 7 nights. It's pretty funny, but you can see here it's really not a laughing matter, and that Tacoma Housing Now, at TAC Housing on Twitter, our movement brought with it mental health workers, lawyers, service workers, medics, community organizers, and people who believe housing is a human right. To defend our movement, the capitalists brought Nazis. Which side are you on? So yeah, the capitalists, when you call the police, who are, we're paying our tax dollars and expecting them to defend us and to take care of occupations like this and people who break in and steal things, which is exactly what these people did. You think that the police are there to protect us. Well, no, these people think that they are Nazis. You bring the police in to defend your business from Tacoma Housing Now, and you have brought Nazis, is how they look at it. You can look at this guy's Twitter account, and you can see that they are endorsed by the Socialist Alternative of Seattle. The people they follow are people like Kashwama Sawant and other socialists, local socialists here. This is purely an Antifa organization that's doing what they can to bring about a socialist communist revolution here in Washington State, doing anything they can to see what sticks. Here they've retweeted the Antifa group. What was at the Red House in Portland? They made an occupied zone around the Red House, and you can see in this little clip that's playing over and over, they're bringing fencing and things like that to surround the Red House. But you can see some of the tweets on the Twitter account from Tacoma Housing Now. They put up a tent in an intersection, and they try and put up a tent or put up signs in the JCPenney parking lot. This is purely an Antifa group. They say here, landlords don't provide housing, they hoard it. And then they say tenants actually provide housing for landlords. If you can wrap your mind around that one, the tenants who rent the houses that are purchased, built, and paid for by landlords, they are the ones providing housing for the landlords. Interesting. Why don't the tenants go out and buy or build their own house instead of renting from somebody who already owns one? And here's some tweets where these guys are basically supporting the local Antifa causes, saying they want to stop the homeless sweeps and things like the stuff that's happening up at Capitol Hill at the Cal Anderson Park, where the homeless have been swept out of the autonomous zone. One thing that these guys did was they have an ongoing GoFundMe page, and they have over $10,000 in donations. And so one might ask, where is the money going? Where is this money, this $10,000 in donations? It's well exceeded $10,000. Where did that money go? Why aren't they using that money to house these homeless people? And I'm sure they've got the excuse that, they've been putting together kits and other things to support the welfare for the homeless people. But I see on their Twitter where they're asking for donations. They're asking for people to donate supplies to meet their needs and things like that. So where's the money going? That's what I want to know. I want to know where the funds for their GoFundMe are ending up. And just know that if you are using GoFundMe, it is sympathetic to these causes. There's Proud Boys and other patriotic groups that try to use GoFundMe when they get put in jail for fighting with Antifa, and they get their GoFundMe shut down, like Kyle Rittenhouse. He can't have a GoFundMe. But these people, these criminals that openly commit felonies, they're allowed to have a GoFundMe page and raise tens of thousands of dollars. Where is that money going? That's what I want to know. Here are some interview clips from CJTV on Facebook, where they interviewed the guy from Tacoma Housing Now that organized this whole event.
Hey, Sam.
Are you with Tacoma Housing Now?
Yes.
Okay. Walk me through what's going on, man.
Well, after repeated attempts to find more permanent housing solutions for people here, we're occupying the hotel. There have been empty rooms and space here. This hotel's basically operated like little to no occupancy. And, I mean, honestly, people are freezing to death outside. And with COVID-19, shelters are operating at less capacity or not open at all.
Right.
We've had 4 people die during the winter already.
Right here in Tacoma?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's where we're at.
What would you say is a list of demands? If there was a list of, are you considering them demands right now, or?
I suppose you can call them demands. Essentially, we're looking for permanent housing solutions for the people who are staying here and other people who are sleeping outside.
Who are you looking to get those? Is that from the city, the county?
From the city of Tacoma.
The city of Tacoma.
Right now we're hoping that the city of Tacoma will reimburse the owner of the Travelodge for the people staying here.
I talked to the front desk employee, and he did say that it was a stressful point for the owner, Sean, just because of the loss of revenue. Is that a concern for? Is Tacoma Housing Now? Are they willing to reimburse, or what is there any plans for that at all, other than maybe the city?
No, we're hoping that the city of Tacoma will reimburse Sean for his loss.
Right. Are you afraid of any kind of legal reprisal? Any kind of
I wouldn't say I'm afraid. It's certainly a possibility.
What would that be? Is this? I know a lot of people are curious. Is this considered trespassing, or are you guys considered residents now, or how does that work?
My understanding with residency would be staying here for 2 weeks without, being asked to vacate.
Right.
Trespassing involves being, the police being called and, having somebody say you're trespassing.
Sure.
That, to my knowledge, has not happened yet. If the city is willing to foot the bill for that, it could be a win-win situation.
Sure.
Hotels are losing a shitload of money.
Yeah.
Nobody's traveling, nobody's staying anywhere.
Right. Well, I mean, with this being privately owned, and based off what you just said, I know that lights, water, heat, those things are costing money, and I know that's Sean's, the owner, I'm sure, is probably having to flip the bill for that right now, right?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. That's tough. I mean, is there any thoughts on, as a business owner, like, what if it were, if you heard that was going to put him out of business, is that something that, a risk that you were willing to take as an organization?
Yeah.
Wow. But then, what if it put him out in the streets then?
Well, that would be an interesting situation. Frankly, the guy owns and operates a hotel. I'm not sure that it's that dire of a situation. But, no?
you keep hearing terms, whenever anyone talks about the homeless population, you hear talk about drug use as well. They get brought into the same dialogue. Do you feel that that's part of, not saying what's happening here, but in general, is that part of an issue that's kind of happening amongst the homeless community here?
I think lots of people use drugs, and homeless people do too.
Yeah. Man. So the short list of demands would be, if you could bullet point them, it would be.
The real short list is to either fund keeping people here or to have a viable location for everybody to stay in.
Wow. Okay, man. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Well, I don't want FOP, goddammit.